Hello and welcome to the video. Today I will be talking about Security Onion. This is for ICS490 with FISA Clean. My name is Alex, and it should be noted that this video is for educational purposes only. I'm not liable for any damages. I am not going to be covering anything from an offensive perspective, so even if you go home and do everything I do here, no one should get in any trouble. Another disclaimer is these are open source tools, so I may be pronouncing their names wrong. If that's the case, please try to power through it and still make use of the actual content of the video. And okay, so let's move on with the video. This video will be talking about Security Onion, a completely free and open source SIM. Their motto at Security Onion is peel back the layers from your network and make your adversaries cry. Security Onion is a collection of open source network monitoring and reporting tools all baked into one easy to install Linux distribution. Even if you know almost nothing about Security Onion right out of the box with no tuning, it will still provide valuable information about your network. When properly tuned, it can be a really powerful, cost-effective way to see bad things that are going on in your network. We're not really going to be able to cover any of the advanced tuning with this. That comes with more research and time spent with it. I can't possibly talk about everything there is to know about Security Onion in the time allotted for this video, so we'll kind of be doing a pretty fast pace and try to touch on some of the highlights at a 50,000 foot view. We will cover some brief installation requirements. I won't actually demo the installation. That would take the majority of the 20-minute-ish video that we've got here. We also talk about some of the major components of Security Onion, such as Bro. We'll talk about the difference between Cicada versus Snort. We'll touch on OSSEC really briefly, Squeal, Squirt, and Cabana, but not necessarily in that order. I'm going to launch some of the demo traffic that they have to show for our analysis. Actually, I've pre-baked the demo traffic in because it does take a significant amount of time to replay the demo traffic, but I'll show you how I did that as well if you want to do this on your own. It's great because it launches a fair amount of traffic that's worth analyzing, so even if you spin this up in a VM, you can launch that demo traffic and do the analysis yourself. Because you can easily pivot between tools, I'll be jumping between tools and topics throughout the video. Okay, so let's talk about installation. Like I previously said, Security Onion is essentially a Linux distribution. I think currently it's based on Ubuntu 16, but don't quote me on the exact version of Ubuntu. It used to be that you booted into the installer, but for the newer version, you actually live boot Ubuntu and then run the setup icon. Because this is already set up, you'll see a few more icons on the desktop here, but you start off with the setup icon. And you actually have to go through that setup program a couple times as you reboot between some of the steps. For requirements, at a bare minimum, you should have at least 2 network cards, have 8 gigs of RAM, and 4 CPU cores. You can run it as a virtual machine like I am here, especially if you just want to run their pre-baked data and learn about the analysis and how to use the system. Or you can run it on old hardware that you got laying around, or if you're a large organization, you're going to have to run it on a brand new server if you've got a really busy network. You might be able to get away with less hardware as long as you have the minimum of the 2 NICs, but you could see performance issues and may lose some of the data in the captures if it can't keep up with the traffic that's actually on the wire. The easiest and quickest way to get Security Onion going is choosing evaluation mode at install time. This is what we did for this demo. They will pretty much make all the hard choices for you. All you have to do is give it an IP address and tell which interface is the management interface and which network card is the sniffing interface. Because at its core, Security Onion is basically a packet capture machine. It's done with Bro and Snort and NetSniffNG. NetSniffNG is what's used for all the raw packet capture to bring it into the system. Then Bro and Snort are used to pull the relevant intrusion detection information out of the data that's captured. Bro will analyze protocols in the traffic and look for anomalies. Snort is more of a traditional IDS that looks through network traffic, matching signatures. You also have host-based intrusion detection system, that's OSSEC. We're not going to talk a lot about OSSEC in this because I don't have a second host set up that OSSEC is on. OSSEC's great as a host intrusion detection system. You can configure it for various rules, monitor integrity of files. You can look for interesting things, logs, and fire it off that way. But for the most part, we're just going to kind of look at some data that's already pre-captured from OSSEC, but we're not going to go into the actual setup and configuration of that. Like most of the tools in this, that could be a 30-minute video on its own, just getting that going. But all these layers of Security Onion also could be a lengthy video. We'll just be doing highlights with the least on OSSEC. Okay, so our test data, normally you would do that, you would just do sudo so test, and then you would hit enter, and then what it does is it restarts the capture, and it replays all the packet captures to create real-time events for you to take a look at it. It takes a significant amount of time, so I'm not going to do that now. I've already done that in here. Okay, so then after we've got the traffic, let's just take a quick look in Bro here. As you can see in Bro, we've got this full directory where it likely does its spooling. I don't know too much about that directory, to be completely honest. Where I spend my time is the logs and the extracted directory. Okay, good. So, here we go. So then if you go to current, you can see all the up-to-minute logs, and Bro will basically develop a log for each of the types of traffic that it's seen. So if we look at the FTP, we can see any FTP traffic that occurred. You can see if we get passwords and that type of thing, messages. Things like weird.log. This will be protocols and things that aren't behaving as they should. You can, sometimes sometimes happens as part of network traffic. Sometimes it's actually malicious stuff actually happening, and Bro doesn't know where to put it, so it just puts it in weird. Another really cool feature I like about Bro is it will actually extract the executables that it sees over the wire. And so if we did like file, we can see that Win32 executable for MS Windows, and these are likely all executables, and then Bro will assign a sort of like a hash to it, so identify it, and you can look through some of the other analysis software to further explore, what was the connection that was made, where this particular file come from, that type of thing. So that's Bro. I mean, it's pretty powerful, and it just does its thing in the background, and it's just great. Just rock solid. Let's pivot away from Bro now, and let's take a look at Squeal. So Squeal is not web-based, it's more of a client-server type thing, so this is actually a client that you log into and do the same single sign-on that we'll see throughout Security Onion here. And let's tell it to select all of our available interfaces here. And you can see that the real-time events that come in now, these aren't super real-time, these were executed a little bit ago as I ran the test data to prepare for this presentation. But so you see stuff that's in the queue, and then you can see the sensor that triggered it, the alert ID, source IP, source port, destination IP, destination port. You can see the type of messages, and what some people like to do is just kind of right-click on all of these so they can kind of align them. Sets it up nice and pretty for us here. And then you can sort based on the event messages. So when you get things like SNMP, public access, UDP, that's not really going to be too shocking or anything we need to worry about too much. We can see some OSSEC. Again, there's some integrity checksums. One of the great things I like about OSSEC is there's a rule built into Security Onion here, so if you're not actually seeing any capture on the network traffic in a specified amount of time, that will fire off that OSSEC rule, and you get an email alert on that letting you know that there's something wrong with your tap interface, and you're going to want to investigate why you're not getting traffic, make sure you don't miss anything important. As you kind of go through the stuff, the Trojans are probably one of the ones you're most concerned with when you see that, and then current events also is going to be things like drive-by attacks and other types of malicious exploit kits and things like that. we can go through here. We could show the actual packet data. We can see the, here's an ACK from the TCP header. We can see the source information. We see a limited capture here, but keep in mind this isn't a full packet capture. NetStiffNG will be recording that, but this is kind of just in terms of what it saw when it triggered the particular rule. We can also pivot when you right-click on the alert ID, and we can go as far as like Network Miner, or we can pull up Wireshark, and we can actually investigate some of this further. It's kind of cool, all the tools that they have built into Security Onion here, and how easy it is to pivot between them. Let's just take a quick look at Wireshark as well. We can see this particular event will come up, and then we can see that. We can actually follow the TCP stream, and you can see this particular, I don't know if this might have been a GIF that came in, GIF, excuse me. We could find an executable, see that that was downloaded, wherever it came from. And then also in Squeal, we've got, looking at the agent statuses, we can see OSEC still talking to it, PCAP engine, and Snort is providing that. You get statistics of Snort and whatnot. So it's great that Security Onion does use that single sign-on, so you can see we can reuse that administrator throughout whatever we log into. It'll be the same username and password. Then in terms of IDS, where you're actually generating the actual information here, you can pick between Snort or Suricata as your network IDS system at the time of install. When you pick evaluation mode like we did for this particular install, it will install Snort by default. You have to do a custom install if you want to do Suricata. They're both great IDS tools. We'll be using Snort in this demo mostly just because it's installed by default in the eval mode. I've used Suricata in production and been happy with the results. They're essentially, they do the same thing. Snort has a much bigger install base. Suricata has a reputation for being a little bit better at being aware of layer 7 applications and things that might be going on with them. But Snort's catching up in that as well. The only way to really know for sure which one you like the best is to try it out yourself, throw some test data in it, and evaluate them both side by side and see what you like. Both are signature-based, which is becoming more of a problem with encrypted traffic. We're not going to actually pick the things up like we want to see. Suricata is multi-threaded. I think Snort is still a single thread. Both have open source rule sets you can use, or you can purchase premium rule sets. Cisco has a premium rule set for Snort that runs about $30 per sensor a year. Snort for home users. Proofpoint has a pretty good emerging threats rule set for Suricata, but that'll run you about $900 a year per sensor, so that's kind of expensive. Either way, you'll be feeding data into programs to view it, such as Squeal or Squirt. So speaking of Squirt, let's take a look at that now. Close out my mine here. Squirt. So again, single sign-on. And you can see there's no activity in this particular interval because it loads up the current time. I loaded this data, it's UTC time, so my data was a little bit earlier in the day today. And we can start to see all of the events that are in the real-time queue. And with Snort, or excuse me, keep calling it Snort, with Squirt, it groups the similar events together, so you can kind of get a count of how many are in the queue, that type of thing. With this is that same SNMP public access, not a big deal. If you were like a SOC, what you could do is go ahead and just kind of categorize these, and then it will pop it out of the real-time queue, and you'd see other things would pop up in the queue here for other parts of the team to evaluate in the SOC. For me, I don't run a SOC. I'm a smaller incident response team. So we kind of just use this more as a real-time monitor rather than going through the trouble of categories where each event is, and we just kind of pick things based on the severity and run with it from there, and use it kind of as a log to see what's going on. But we can pop into something that looks interesting. Let's see if we can find current events. So this looks like a nuclear exploit kit. You can do things like Google it, and it'll Google looks like the rule set off of it, or the particular rule ID, or we can pivot into virus total or Zeus tracker. We can pull up Kibana, which we'll be getting into later in the presentation. This is kind of like a visualization. Yeah, it should take us to the event, and we can see various things about it. It takes a little bit to populate. Let's see snort triggered a rule. The drive-by for nuclear, the lights that we set off by this. No OSEC lights for this particular thing. Let's go back. We browse in a little bit more. Again, you can see the particular rule that categorized it, and basically this kind of works the same as Squirt does, Squeal, excuse me, but it's more of a HTML web-based versus a client server. So depending what type of interface you like, you can expand timelines and go through various events and things like that, sort by priority. Okay, so that was Squirt. So, like I said, Security Onion does default to UTC Squirt here. But what I like to do in my work computer is add a second time clock so I can easily do the math. And I set that one to UTC and then my other one to my local time zone. And you can kind of tell where events happen based on things that may not be set to UTC. All right. So, I think that's okay. So in here you can see the raw packet capture by grabbing that, and then CapMe should be in here. Not sure why it's showing up, but again, we did show looking at the raw packet capture through Squeal, excuse me. You can see source IP, country, United States, destination, that type of thing. So let's go ahead and move on. Running out of time here. So we did briefly demonstrate Bro already. We talked about Kibana, how Kibana we could possibly do a search for these particular signatures. Now I'm somewhat colorblind, and Kibana is kind of a generic visualization where you can put any amount of raw data in Kibana, and you can easily demonstrate or generate visualizations based on that. But with my colorblindness, it winds up just being a mess of colors that I don't particularly find all that helpful. What I do like is the way Security Onion has implemented Kibana. At the bottom, they've also got these raw charts, and I find that a little bit more useful when I'm visualizing. You can actually see things that are more data-based, and it's just a great way of visualizing data. But you can look at sources by country and breaks that up, various things where pretty much anything you can see in here. You can also kind of quickly zoom in on a particular time and kind of get really granular of what was happening at this particular timestamp, what happened in that minute, and just kind of really drill down. You can see now we're down to 239 logs from the 70,000 odd that we had before. Of course, that's when we drill down that little. That's going to greatly reduce the amount of things we see in the actual counter. So, but let's go ahead and see if we can search for particular Bro results. Oh, we might be doing that in our particular time slot that we did here. Come back in. This is probably the one that I use the least out of the tools in Security Onion, again because of the colors. Now we're back up to our amount of logs. Let's try So we can search for this again. Now we can see the bro files, the bro HTTP, and probably some sort of protocol along with that HTTP. And see the blip in here where it happened. And then we may be able to see some of the actual content that with that. There's other ways you can browse through it. Looking at the log stash data, you can look at the dashboard. For the most part, most of these are built into Kibana. The Squirt interface, you can pivot to Squirt right from your data from Kibana, and the other one with the logout at the bottom of that as well are unique to Security Onion. Well, that's pretty much all I have time today for the video. You can see we've only scratched the surface of what Security Onion can do by looking at the results of the bro and the snort analysis. We looked through Squeal and Squirt and Kibana, explored that a little bit. They've got just all sorts of features that you can look at. You can look just tons and tons of different ways of visualizing sort of the same data, what are your preferences. And I encourage you to try it out. It's really easy to use in a VM. You don't actually have to have real data to capture. You can do that SO test like we did for this demo and use test data and just play around with it and learn how to do the analysis and just get better with it. With that, thank you.